Hello, welcome to Dev Radio. I'm here with Steve Dieke from Corteva. Thank you for joining us.
Great to be here.
Steve's going to talk a little bit about how they approached the need to update their engineering standards and what they did. But first, Steve, why don't you tell us about Corteva and what you do there? It's both an agricultural company, but even more, it's a technology company. It's an engineering company. Right?
Yeah. You might not think of an ag company as a technology company, but yeah, Corteva is a company. We're a pure play agriculture company, so we only work in that sector, and we sell seed, crop protection, which would be like fertilizer or chemicals to protect crops, and digital solutions to help farmers worldwide. So we've been around from a variety of different parent companies since the 1800s. And our purpose, is really our tagline is to enrich the lives of those who produce and consume for generations to come.
And there's heritage and legacy in the technology industry, but it's you're dealing with real legacy there.
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about what which kind of gets to. You needed to kind of update the way that you do your engineering standards. Tell us about kind of like where you guys were at and where you wanted to get to.
Yeah, sure. So as a company history, I mentioned some parent companies, right? So over time, we've kind of joined companies and we've split out into an independent ag company. And with that, you shuffle your application portfolio around sometimes, and just like any large or mid-sized enterprise, you've got applications that are constantly churning, new development, new features. And you've also got some of those applications that are just continual use in more of that run and maintain mode. So we're kind of all over the map on the technical debt spectrum. And so managing that, as you know, is a challenge, right? So we had our own production readiness standards and software engineering standards already. And think of production readiness as things we wanted to make sure an application or an application team does before the application goes live. And then as well, software engineering standards really talk to what we wanted the application's guidelines for building and what to use, how to do that. Those were kind of proprietary terms that we've used for quite a while, and we wanted to update those.
So let's talk a little bit about so I'll pull up my slide on the Microsoft Well Architected Framework. It's industry, sort of industry standard. I mean, it's very similar to how AWS puts things forward and how Google puts things forward. And there are, when you're running cloud applications, these are the 5 pillars that we put out there as focus on these and measure these. And it's cost optimization, of course. It's a constant thing in the cloud as things are changing. Operational excellence, which is a lot of DevOps and more. Performance efficiency, reliability, I think is really key, and of course security. How did Corteva approach these as you were looking for something that everyone could agree on?
Yeah. So some of the pain points that we had with what we had before with those 2 standards, right, is they were more our terms, not industry standard terms. So we were looking for something more industry standard, which this fits the bill, as you said. And we also didn't have a great way to translate adherence to those and a maturity of our products so that we could have intelligent, focused discussions with our business partners, right? And so the Well Architected Framework was ready-made for that, and really helped us get from point A to point C. And what we were able to do after going through the Well Architected Framework was realize that a lot of our existing standards that we already had in place were elements of that framework already, right? So they fit into those pillars very neatly. And the nice thing about the Well Architected Framework from Microsoft is 2 things. One, there's a lot more than what we had, right? So it gives you a lot more items to consider, to think about when you're designing your app, when you're running your app, things like that. But the other nice thing I like about the framework is that it's an application in itself. So you can go out to the Microsoft website, create a holding spot for your application and fill out a survey. And there's a few hundred questions. And
Yeah.
then it will give you recommendations on that and allow you to track those over time. So you can come back, 6 months from now, after you've been able to make some progress, retake that survey and get some updates, see what Microsoft has injected into that well-architected framework, and see how your app has progressed over time.
So you can really kind of benchmark where you're at with the assessment tool. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we were able to take the framework that Microsoft used, and is, like you said, is an industry standard. We slotted our existing items under there. We also found some items that we needed to add because, again, they were homegrown originally, and we wanted to use more of the industry best practice approach. And then we tried to align those to our pillars, and then really try to figure out the next step of, okay, well, how do we report out? How do we give our IT leaders, our business peers, a view of this data that can get pretty complex, pretty technical, in a way that can help improve products, allow us to have those discussions to improve our technical excellence. And that's what we've done with a maturity model.
Can you give a couple examples of like a high and low? When you reach out to your business stakeholders, they might not all know what good is, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. The maturity model is pretty simple. I'll show it to you here in a second. But when you think about the lowest bars, you're thinking of things like, do you have a service level agreement for your application? What are the business use periods? When is it supported? Who supports it? How do you get a support ticket created? Things like that. Or a non-functional requirement, right? Something that is these are typically things done in like a sprint zero, right?
Yeah.
Where you're level setting your teams. We're testing on this browser or this mobile platform or things like that, right? Response times coming back. That would be a low bar. Those are some of the base level things. And as you know, sometimes teams will skip over those, right? They're very excited to get on development. Business owners want to see progress. They want to see their application take form and be built. And sometimes we maybe skip some steps that later down the road would be really great to document or use. So those would be low bars. Some high bars that we direct teams for is, very high bar would be like full CI/CD, right? You got to have a certain level of maturity to get to that, where you are checking in a change, it's approved, it's reviewed, and then it goes through your dev environment, goes through your automated testing, looks good, automatically promoted to the next environment, and so on, right? That's a pretty mature team that has all of that automated testing, all of that code coverage there. So things like unit test gating would be another one. Another one that we're just getting into would be cost-based infrastructure and automation, right? So, if you've got development teams that are only working 8-9 hours out of the day in a certain region of the world, but your infrastructure in Azure is running over a certain, over 24 hours, do you really need that infrastructure running for those remaining hours? We haven't got there yet, but that's something aspirational that is a high bar where we can look at the cost pillar.
Yeah, that'll feel like you've got great control. Yeah.
So I can go into the a little bit of the maturity model if that helps, and show a couple examples.
Yeah, you've got some great stuff. Let's take a look.
So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen here. Oops.
Okay, there it is.
Okay. So this is a quarterly report scorecard that we came up with. And really what this does is try to give us that maturity level view on those pillars. So you can see reliability, cost, operational excellence, etc. And then our maturity levels in this column here. I'll make this a little bigger so we can see. And this is a fictional application. This isn't a real one. But really, at a rudimentary level, what we want our architects and our software engineering leads to do is track this quarterly. So, do you have your SLA defined? And it's pretty simple: complete, not started, in progress, right? And the yellow items that are highlighted is our target. So when we look at the spider diagram here, you can see we've got a target in each of these areas that we want a team to strive to reach to, and then we've got a current state. And that really kind of puts the rubber to the road of saying for each application, what is our target in each of those 5 pillars, and where do you want that? Where are we at, and where do we want to go?
Yeah.
And the nice thing is, once we have this, we've got this data in a little bit easier digestible format.
Mhm.
We take that to just a simple PowerPoint, copy that in, where we can add some narrative around what we accomplished the last quarter, and then what are continued risks or issues or things that we want to focus on in the next quarter. So that when we do our quarterly planning process, where we talk about all the business features that we want to add to an application, we have something that can now be referenced as a narrative to say, here's what we accomplished from the technical health perspective the last quarter. Here's what we want to focus on in addition to those business features.
Yeah.
And as you know, it's a constant push and pull between, business wants features, they want it out fast, because as soon as you have those features developed, you're delivering value to the users. But you also have to weigh that off with the technical health and how you do that as well.
Yeah, but that's one of the things that gets me excited about what you guys did is, the helping your business stakeholders understand the choices they're making and the trade-offs they've got to make and what they can prioritize. And, I mean, just looking at this chart, I feel like we've got to get on operational excellence right away, right?
Yeah. Now, the hard part with the maturity model is because we implemented it after we had all those standards already in place, you can see that sometimes maybe I've completed standards at other levels of maturity, but because we haven't done a lower level, we got to go back and retrace our steps a little bit to get that. So operational excellence, for example, in this example, isn't as bad as the diagram looks.
Yeah.
But again, that's the part of the evolving process over time that applications all do, and they're all in different states.
Can you speak a little bit to, I mean, how did you've got lots of organization and lots of teams within your organization, very distributed. You've got part of the organization that works like a research and development team, a bunch of scientists. And then you've got people that are responsible for getting stuff done and shipping. What was the process of pulling everyone together to make this pretty big change for how you work? What were some of the lessons learned?
The change is ongoing. Right?
Yeah.
We're never done. This is not a quote unquote project with a defined start date and end date. Right?
Yeah.
Putting together the software engineering standards or the production readiness standards, tying those to the well architected framework, that's really the easy part. That's the easy part. The hard part really comes in trying to adhere, get those stories prioritized or features prioritized, things like that. So it's not an overnight solution, and it isn't for us, right? We're starting out on our journey, just like any company is, and there's no overnight solution. Pulling together the teams, that is a little easier, because as in any organization, you have groups like software engineering, you have enterprise architecture, you have your security architecture, things like that, right? It was a collaboration amongst all those groups to say, we know we need to make some strides forward and collaborate and let's figure out a path forward. So having a good collaborative organization is really helpful, and we do have one here. So it's a continual improvement process.
Yeah, and I think it's got to help that everyone starts to feel, because you're showing it and measuring it in a rigorous way, everyone starts to feel the progress, right? Like, this business is getting better. I'm sure that's
responsible, right? Because each of those pillars, some of which may not be part of the development team, because you separate, separation of duties, right?
Yeah.
So some of the security things that come out of the well architected framework that are not in our maturity model yet may not be responsible by the team. That's why that collaboration works so well, is because they want to see the team succeed just like the teams do.
Yeah. I think this is great. I mean, it's I think Corteva sounds like a good place to be a software developer. And just real quickly as we wrap up here, we invited you on because you're one of our Azure developer influencers, which is a group of people that it's turned into a kind of a community at this point. We've got getting close to 50 to 100 folks who are leaders at their organizations like you. What's your experience been so far with the program? getting together with these other people.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
been great, and I would
yeah,
encourage it for others.
yeah,
The nice thing that I've seen in the 6 months that I've been a member of the program is the
mm,
opportunities it affords you
yep,
to connect and collaborate with other groups, other
mm,
companies,
mm,
and then also Microsoft yourself, right? You bring certain topics to us
mhm,
that we may not had a chance to understand, see, get exposed to otherwise. So
yeah.
I would say both from both perspectives, it's been great.
That's great to hear. Yeah, getting you access is what the program's all about. Getting you those
Mhm.
contact with the people that make the stuff. So, well, Steve, thank you so much for your time, and hope to have you back in the future when you've got something else to share.
Great. It's been great talking to you.
Thanks.